You drove 2,000 miles for this?
When you try to appeal to everybody, you end up appealing to no one. 2XKO officially released after a difficult 10-year development process, just be hit with a resounding and 80 people out of a job at Riot. Not a good sign for the first major release of a fighting game. Many, myself included, already feel that 2XKO's days are numbered. So how did a game with so much money, time, and talent behind it fumble so hard as it left the oven? A lot of reasons, as it turns out. Think of this video as a pre-mortem, as I go over what killed 2XKO. The game is still being worked on as I make this video, but I want to plan ahead. So before we begin, make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit the bell as well for notifications on future videos, and be sure to watch the video the whole way through before you comment, okay? Okay, and with that out of the way, let's begin. All of 2XKO's issues can be summed up in one word: uncertain. And the uncertainty starts before you even download the game. 10 years of development for the game to only launch with 11 characters. 2XKO's launch roster includes beefy dudes, some yiffing, some safe picks, and characters featured in the hit show Arcane. While a great show, it begs the question, was 2XKO meant to be a League of Legends fighting game or an Arcane fighter? If either was supposed to be the case, the final product does not represent either in terms of aesthetics or naming conventions. To be fair, Arcane looks like it took a lot of money to make, and League, well, I don't think visuals are their top priority. Keep in mind, there is literally hundreds of characters in League to choose from. Let's look at one letter, Z. 'Cause I'm Z. Purely off of looks alone, these characters look sick as heck, and there's 25 other letters of the alphabet, each with their own cool looking character. Plus League has other spin-offs, why not bring back KDA characters for a ride? If Riot had no plans to tie 2XKO to League or Arcane, they could have gone ham with wacky and cool characters. Instead, they just had a paltry 11 for launch. Most of them were really safe picks, and the first post-launch character being another character featured in Arcane. And it cannot be overstressed how terrible the name 2XKO is. Obviously, the codename Project L was not going to stick, but why that name 2XKO? Why not title it League of Legends Versus or League of Fighters, or even something like 2XKO from the League of Legends universe? It's like Riot is ashamed of tying it to their main product. Then again, I would be ashamed too if I have all that money and my main game still looks like a PS2 title, while bringing out some of the absolute biggest seat sniffers that humanity has ever seen.
Ah, cara, puta.
A case study of brand expansion done right is Granblue. While the main game is a gacha title, it has spun off into other mediums, but each has shared characters, aesthetics, and the same damn name to let people know it's a part of a franchise. If you just read the names League of Legends, Arcane, and 2XKO without any context, would you know that they are part of the same franchise? No! They just assumed that having Riot's name on it and having the fools from Arcane be playable would lead to success. You have to tell people why this game was worth playing and what it's connected to, and give your players confidence that you will support your product. Given that Riot laid off 80 people quickly after launch, it tells me that they don't believe in their own damn game. Coupling the fact is that Riot's marketing guy must have been out fishing for a couple of years, as the promotion for this game was rather poor. People only heard about the console release after the news broke that Riot was laying off 80 people from the dev team. What a good way to market your title. Let everyone know that it did not perform well by some arbitrary standard only a few weeks after a launch. And I'm not saying you need to get KSI and speed to shill a game, but a few commercials would not have been a bad idea.
Oh no. What's up?
Destiny has brought you here.
It's clear from the outset that developers wanted to make a fighting game that was more accessible to all skill levels, but they went about it in a very cum-fueled high fashion. Now hopping into a round of 2XKO feels intuitive. I hit training mode and was easily doing combos with Ahri and Yasuo. It reminds me a lot of Marvel vs. Capcom 3, aka the greatest game ever made in terms of pace, and that's a great thing. The uncertainty starts in the controls. This is a rare case of an 8-button fighting game. You have 3 attacks, 2 specials, your assist, and dash and parry macros. You think they might have overthought it. Yeah, there's commands for dashes and parries, but that's the default control layout. For a game trying to be for beginners, that's a lot to take in. The 2 special buttons are there because of this weird crusade against motion inputs, with some loving them and others thinking that they are a relic of game design. Remember this gem of a video?
I've argued with people about this in the past, and quite frankly, I'm done being patient with this argument. Motion inputs are an ancient relic of fighting games, and they're just simply not needed for any balancing reason at all.
The special buttons remind me of Smash Bros, which is not a bad thing, and it does take a minute to get used to, but I adjusted. At the same time, I think that they could have cleaned up the controls if they only had one special move button, or used different button combinations like Street Fighter V Ed. A compromise would have been to have 2 different control inputs for those like me who enjoy motions. Street Fighter VI hit the nail on the head perfectly. You have 2 control modes. Well, 3, but nobody uses dynamic. There's classic controls for veterans and modern controls for newcomers. Both have their strengths and weaknesses, but both are tournament viable. I do credit modern controls as one of the reasons why 6 is so popular, as it lowered the barrier to entry for newcomers without having to sacrifice fun gameplay. Had 2XKO went the same route, they would have had something to work with. Instead, they broke something that was already fixed. Even if they adjusted the controls, the mechanics are also all over the place. While again, it feels intuitive at first, there is a lot going on under the hood. Instead of making a game that was mechanically simple, they threw things at the wall and weren't sure which ones were sticking. A key feature to 2XKO is the fuse system, which adjusts your team to focus on certain functions. After spending more time with the game, the fuse system feels largely superfluous? Like if they just streamlined the mechanics for everybody and did away with the fuse system, it would have made the game more intuitive and be easier for newcomers. Instead, it just gatekeeps mechanics without adding any depth or fun to the game. The shining example of choice in fighting games is Capcom vs SNK 2. The game is based around the groove system, each having different tools to play around with and making some characters stronger when in the right groove. So there's an extra layer of strategy and enjoyment in choosing your characters and groove. But we all know that you're just going to pick Blanka like a piece of trash. Instead, 2XKO added in fuses for the sake of them, when just having less mechanics to worry about would have benefited everybody. Not only that, I've seen some crazy combos from people online. Not by me, I'm pretty whack at this game. But in general, nobody likes hopping onto ranked just to get hit by a cutscene in their first couple of matches. So again, was 2XKO supposed to be a beginner-friendly title, or a hardcore one? In the end, it just hits at this awkward middle ground that doesn't do either well. This casual versus competitive factor really does seep into every aspect of 2XKO. While free to play, there's basically nothing to do besides grind online. Even Multiverses had that whole single-player rift thing, and when Multiverses, one of the worst fighting games ever, has an edge over you, you messed up big time. Competitive players might be enticed by Riot's prize money, but the uneven balance and constant changes to the core gameplay are going to make the game hard to stick with in the long term, assuming the game even survives that long. I saw esports teams in Japan already making 2XKO divisions. I wonder how that investment is going to pay off. I remember reading a news article back in 2008 or 9 or so about a guy who dropped out of high school to grind Guitar Hero full time. Back in 2008 or 9. I hope that guy is doing well in life, and I really hope he's not dead in jail or in Florida, which is the same thing as being dead. I think this unevenness comes from the fact that Riot, a non-fighting game developer, wanted to make a fighting game for non-fighting game fans, so they hired a bunch of fighting game players to make a fighting game for non-fighting game and fighting game fans. There are some contrasting philosophies there. By the way, Riot, it might be a good idea to prevent people who worked on the game to enter your own damn tournament series. Have you ever heard of a phrase called conflict of interest? And I can't even say 2XKO is for League of Legends fans, cause all they do is solo queue all day while chugging Baja Blast, urinate into bottles and say racial slurs, and blame everybody but themselves on why they lost. They are not going to stop playing League for a totally different type of competitive game just because Jinx is in it. And look, I cannot tell you why people like League. Maybe it's the social aspect, the teams, the competitive circuit. Whatever the reason is, Riot could not find a way to get their players to take a break from the MOBA to try a fighting game. And while I'm not a MOBA player, I enjoy fun video games, I don't think your skills transfer over instantly. So I don't see Faker winning EVO anytime soon. I knew 2 guys back in Albuquerque, 2 conventionally attractive dudes who had free rides to college who went full in on League of Legends trying to make that their career. And you know what happened? Boom! Twink death. League of Legends. Not even once. The biggest sin that 2XKO committed was that it's too late for the party. This title has been in the works for 10 years. A lot changes in 10 years. Just to paint a picture, in 2016, fighting games used to use delayed base netcode. While it worked in Japan, it was not exactly the best for people outside the country. Rollback netcode was clearly the way forward for the genre. Capcom attempted it with Street Fighter V, but botched it, though somehow Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite played well online. NRS games had good netcode, but they could not hold the player base for a variety of reasons. The Cannon Bros developed GGPO, which was the golden standard of rollback netcode. With most major fighting games back then struggling with delayed base netcode, a fighting game with Riot's money and tournament experience with smooth rollback online play would have absolutely changed the fighting game scene. In 2019 or so, instead of Riot being the one to push fighting games forward, two titles released that elevated the genre. The first is Guilty Gear Strive. Now, I personally don't care for the title. I cannot deny its impact. Thanks to strong visuals, cool characters, momentum from Dragon Ball FighterZ, and smooth online play, it became a huge hit. The Guilty Gear anime was awful though. It takes skill and talent to make an anime somehow worse than BlazBlue Alter Memory. The second is Street Fighter VI. It reinvented the game by being a complete product that caters to both casuals and competitive players, with an entertaining single-player mode and a really deep combat system that keeps you coming back for more. It's little wonder why 6 has sold over 6 million units at time of making this video. Launching your fighting game as a complete game is a task that 2XKO, and hell, most fighting games, have been failing to grasp. Despite my yapping, I do think there is a good game buried deep within 2XKO, and I think with enough effort, it could be a game worth playing. And this will not be the first time this has happened with a fighting game. Case in point, Grand Blue. The first game launched in 2022 had decent reception, but it didn't take off quite as well as people wanted to, thanks to factors in and outside the game, such as these. However, Cygames took the L's, put in the effort, and they remade the game as Grand Blue vs. Rising, and it's one of the better fighting games out right now. Plus, they thought ahead and have a free-to-try version to try to get people into the game without having to make that financial investment. Damn, they stole 2XKO's thunder before that game even came out. Again, it would have to take a lot of elbow grease from Riot, but they could make something out of 2XKO. However, I don't have a lot of faith in the company that said momentum hasn't been there 2 weeks after launch, and I really cannot stress how bad of a blog post that was from Riot. Ultimately, 2XKO launched in the state with a ton of money behind it, but no direction. It's not for casuals, as there's nothing to do besides grind online. Competitive players aren't going to drop their main game for the sake of Riot money and be at the whims of the balance team always slipping the T-table. League players aren't interested in playing a League spin-off, let alone a fighting game, and Arcane fans don't even know this game exists. That leaves 2XKO as a game without a market unless Riot gets their head out of their asses, which probably is not going to happen. If it sounds like I'm being really harsh on 2XKO and Riot, it's because I am. You don't just get to fart around for 10 years, assume that everyone wants to play your games because the Riot branding is on it, just launch with only 11 characters and hit with an absolute from the FGC. Again, this is not the FGC's problem, this is not the people who got laid off at Riot, but purely management at Riot. I hope these people get made fun of online. I ran a poll on my community tab page about what it's a fighting game spin-off you would like to see, and Like a Dragon took this poll. I know they said they don't want Kiryu in a fighting game because they don't want him beating up girls, and while I haven't played Yakuza Kiwami 3 yet at the time of making this video, you can just do whatever the hell you want in the series. So Kiryu, have him fight women, I don't care anymore. Or here's an even better idea. Make a new Fighters Mega Mix, Sega, that'd be a really cool idea. Most, if not all of 2XKO's issues can be traced back to its long development process. While Project L was formally announced in 2019, its origins go further back than that. Let me introduce you to a title called Rising Thunder, a free-to-play fighting game from the developer Radiant Entertainment, which was founded by the Cannon brothers. The game showed promise. With amazing netcode and unique gameplay, the developers were bought out by Riot in March 2016, and work on Rising Thunder stopped. Sometime in 2016 or 17, pre-production on a League-related fighting game started, with it being formally announced at EVO 2019 as Project L as a one-on-one fighting game. News was sporadic past that announcement, but there was a good reason for that. Project L would appear here and there, and it was eventually rebooted to be a 2-on-2 tag fighter. There were playable builds throughout the Project L phase of the title. I personally cannot comment on the game as I never got a chance to play it while it was in the Project L phase. In 2024, Project L would re-emerge with a rebrand and get the title of 2XKO. Despite the rebrand, there was still uncertainty on the game's direction. Comparing various beta builds of the title show that Riot didn't exactly have a vision for the final project. I guess someone at Riot must have said like, hey, we gotta get this game out at some point. After so many announcements and delays, the PC build was launched in late 2025, with the console port being released early 2026. Now, it's hard to know what exactly went down during development. Any game that takes 10 years to make and only has 11 characters to show for it has to have a lot of drama behind the scenes. I could not find anything concrete other than some vague messages here and there. Also, to the new Discord owner, you could have one of these. The gaming industry is an insular one. You cannot be bad-mouthing your old home, especially ones that are run by a bunch of indecisive man-children. The only thing's for sure is that the pandemic threw a wrench into plans. There were a lot of changes in staff, with some being inexperienced in game development, and the game engine changed at least once. The two common theories are that development took so long as Riot's upper management had to approve everything. That holds weight as Arcane had a lengthy production too, not due to technical issues, but due to Riot taking their sweet time giving the okay to things. Welcome to Nomura's world when he has to deal with Disney. The other and less likely theory is that the Cannon Bros were intentionally dragging things out. And it's not like Riot could have fired them, as they are the ones behind the whole project. And canceling a game with a lot of money and hype behind it is a sign of weakness. Personally, I think the truth lies somewhere in between. Maybe Riot was taking forever with approvals, obviously because characters like Echo and Jinx are as popular as Mario and Mickey Mouse, but I digress. However, Riot wasn't really managing the game as much as they should have. That's why development dragged on for so long until someone said, hey, we gotta get this game out eventually. Alas, we'll probably never know what truly happened in 2XKO's development. Unless someone wants to slide into my DMs, I promise you I will keep you safe from those dirty Riot bastards. As much as I love fighting games, it seems like every new title in the genre these days manages to crap themselves as soon as they leave development. Guilty Gear Strive and Granblue seem to be doing just fine, especially the latter after the Rising rebrand. Tekken 8 had an okay start, but tumbled downhill after the Season 2 patch. With Harada no longer at Bamco, it remains to be seen how Tekken 8 moves forward. Mortal Kombat 1 is poorly regarded by its fans, and even WB was disappointed in sales figures. I don't drink to have fun, I drink to mourn the loss of antitrust laws in America. I can't believe I have to root for Netflix to buy WB instead of Paramount. Ellison, here's an idea. Why don't you do something with Paramount's properties instead of trying to buy WB with the money you don't have while stroking off the orange one? You could dust off that last Ronin movie that you canceled like a jerk. City of the Wolves was a victim of the royal family's meddling, and they paid for it with poor sales and a small player base. People got salty over my Fatal Fury video, but deep down you know I am correct. While Season 2 is a step in the right direction, SNK having to AI generate a trailer while burning out Season 2 characters in 6 consecutive months is an ominous sign. Smash Bros, while still having a competitive scene, is absolutely forsaken by Nintendo. Smash Bros players, you need to accept the fact that Nintendo does not care about competitive Smash, no matter how much HBox whines on Twitter. Either live with that fact or pick up a different game. It seems like the only fighting game that's doing well is Street Fighter 6. Capcom learned a painful lesson about putting the cart before the horse with previous titles. They just focused on making a quality product, and they were rewarded with over 6 million figures in sales and a large player base. Even then, people are getting fed up with Capcom's lack of communication and conservative approach to balancing. Pay getting Capcom Cup 2026 was also a dick move. And despite my complaints, it's still a fun fighting game, and it's the only fighting game I think is worth your time and money. Whenever a fighting game flops, people in the FGC always bicker with each other, pointing fingers on why no one is playing the game. At the end of the day, fighting games are video games. If a game cannot maintain a player base, it all boils down to the fact that the publishers and developers could not make a game worth sticking with. It's clear that whatever expectations Riot had were either really high, or the game really could not find an audience, period. Whatever the case, the blame for 2XKO's failures need to be put at Riot's feet. Not the FGC's, not the people laid off at Riot, but the people who let a game sit in development hell for 10 years just to have nothing to show for it. And before I end the video, I'll just say this. I want to be wrong about everything I said here. If I'm wrong about 2XKO and it comes back in a huge way later down the line, I will happily dine on my own words. Preferably with a nice sashimi platter, some sake, and a beautiful woman to enjoy it with. But until then, Riot 2XKO fans, y'all gotta hold that stuff. We'll see you in the Virtual Fighter 6 / Marvel Tokon Fighting Souls waiting room. So that's my look at 2XKO finished, and I hope you enjoyed it. I really do feel like there is a good game buried deep within 2XKO, and there is that chance that Riot could dig up something great with the game going forward. But I just don't have a lot of faith in the game if 2 weeks after launch the same momentum hasn't been there 2 weeks after launch. So yeah, I probably cheesed off a lot of people in the FGC, and I can already smell the Riot fanboys from here in my comments, but you know what? That's how we do on the Z-Man show. But But here's today's topic. What's a fighting game spin-off you would like to see, or who's your favorite League of Legends character? Let me know down there in the comments. And while you're down there, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the bell as well for notifications on future videos. Follow me on the social media accounts like Twitter, Instagram @Zamings. And with that, I will see you in the next video. Later, everybody. Take care.